Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In the previous video, I discussed regarding mechanism of breathing. In continuation with that, in this video, we'll talk about exchange of gases. Exchange of gases is a very important step in the process of respiration because respiration itself is nothing but the exchange of gases, isn't it? So exchange of gases takes place during the respiration. So what are the gases that involved in the respiration process? They are the respiratory gases, means oxygen and carbon dioxide. When exactly exchange of gases takes place? Yes, as you have studied in the last video, exchange of gases takes place in the exchange part of the respiratory system. So which is the exchange part of the respiratory system? That is the alveoli part. So alveoli part is the exchange part of the respiratory system. That's why alveoli is known as functional unit of the lung or the functional unit of the respiratory system. So it is in the alveoli mainly exchange of this oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. Apart from that, there is a one more site where there is exchange of gases, that is between the tissue and the blood. So in each and every cell or at the tissue level, there will be exchange of gases between the tissue and the blood. So there are mainly two sites where there is a exchange of gases. So one is in the alveoli, another is at the tissue level, that is between the tissue and the blood. There will be exchange of gases take place. But how exactly there will be exchange of gases? Exchange of gases takes place mainly by diffusion process. So you know that gases always move from one region to another region by simple diffusion. So by simple diffusion, there will be exchange of gases in the respiratory system. What do you mean by diffusion? You all know that diffusion is a very simple process where there is a movement of molecule, mainly gases, from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. That is nothing but the simple diffusion. So even in the respiration, the gaseous exchange takes place by this simple diffusion method. For the simple diffusion to occur, there should be concentration gradient or the pressure gradient. What do you mean by concentration gradient? Difference in the concentration. Difference in the concentration of what? Difference in the concentration of this oxygen or the carbon dioxide between the two regions. Then only this oxygen or the carbon dioxide can move from high concentration region to low concentration region by simple diffusion. So by maintaining this concentration gradient, the gaseous exchange can take place, or there should be pressure gradient. Pressure gradient means difference in the pressure. So there should be difference in the pressure of this oxygen and the carbon dioxide gases. Then only the oxygen or the carbon dioxide can move from high pressure region to low pressure region. So if we talk about the pressure, you know the concept of atmospheric pressure, isn't it? So atmospheric pressure is a pressure exerted by the atmospheric gases. So in the atmospheric gases, it's a mixture of gases. So pressure exerted by the individual gas in a mixture of gas is nothing but the partial pressure. So PO2 is nothing but the partial pressure of oxygen, that is pressure exerted by the oxygen in a mixture of gases. Whereas PCO2 is a partial pressure of carbon dioxide, that is pressure exerted by the carbon dioxide in a mixture of gases. So there should be difference in the partial pressure of oxygen and the carbon dioxide in two different regions. Then only the oxygen or the carbon dioxide can move from high pressure region to low pressure region. So for the diffusion to occur, there should be concentration gradient or the pressure gradient. Then only oxygen and the carbon dioxide can move from region of high concentration or high pressure to a region of low concentration or the low pressure. This is a table which shows the partial pressure of oxygen and the carbon dioxide at different region of the respiratory system. First, we'll learn about this table. As I already told, this is the partial pressure of oxygen at different part of the respiratory system. First one is atmospheric air. So in the atmospheric air, the partial pressure is 159 mmHg. So mmHg is a unit that is measures the partial pressure, that is millimeter of mercury. So atmospheric pressure have partial pressure of oxygen, that is 159. Whereas in the alveoli, it is 104. Can you see the pressure difference here, that is between the atmosphere and alveoli? Yes, there is a 55 mmHg pressure difference between the atmosphere and the alveoli. So that is a partial pressure difference of the oxygen. So obviously oxygen will move from a high pressure region to low pressure region, that is from atmosphere to alveoli, and that happens during the inhalation. So during inhalation, oxygen will move from atmosphere to alveoli based on the pressure difference. Now the oxygen is present in the alveoli and the partial pressure is 104, and this alveoli is a highly vascularized structure, means it is surrounded by the blood vessel which carry this deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated means without oxygen. So the partial pressure of this deoxygenated blood is very less, that is 40, and you can see the pressure difference. So there is a pressure difference of about 64 mmHg. Obviously the oxygen will move from high pressure to low pressure region, that is from alveoli to blood, and now the blood receives oxygen and deoxygenated blood become oxygenated. Upon oxygenation, this blood will move to heart, specifically right part of the heart, that is right atrium and right ventricle, and it will be pumped to different parts of the body, that is each and every cells of the body. Now this oxygenated blood with the partial pressure of oxygen, that is 95, enters each and every cell or enters the tissue level. In the tissue, the partial pressure of oxygen is very less, that is 40 mmHg. Again you can see the pressure difference, that is of about 55. So this pressure difference, oxygen will move from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure, that is from the oxygenated blood to tissue. Now each and every cell will receive this oxygen and use this oxygen for the many metabolic activity, ultimately to produce ATP. So during that process, carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct. We'll see what happens to this carbon dioxide while discussing the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. You can say this is a partial pressure of carbon dioxide at different part of the respiratory system. So now the carbon dioxide is produced in each and every cells or at the tissue level with the partial pressure 45, which is high. Okay, so partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the tissue is 45, whereas the blood surrounded by that tissue has carbon dioxide, that is 40, which is less when compared to 45, and the difference is 5 mmHg. Okay, so at the tissue level, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45, and the blood, it has a partial pressure of carbon dioxide, that is 40, and the difference is 5 mmHg. So obviously the carbon dioxide will move from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, that is from the tissue into the blood. Now the blood become deoxygenated because it gives oxygen to the tissue and it receives carbon dioxide from the tissue. That's why the blood now become deoxygenated blood. And now this deoxygenated blood enters the left part of the heart, that is the left auricle and the left ventricle, and it will be sent to the lung for the process of oxygenation. Now the blood, that is deoxygenated blood, enters the lung region, and there the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45. So in the lung the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45, that is high when compared to the alveoli. In the alveoli the partial pressure is 40, whereas in the blood, that is deoxygenated blood, after receiving the carbon dioxide from the tissue, it becomes 45, that is partial pressure becomes 45 because it receives the carbon dioxide from the tissue. That's why the partial pressure of carbon dioxide of the deoxygenated blood is 45, which is higher when compared to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveoli, that is 40. So pressure difference is 5 mmHg. So obviously the carbon dioxide move from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, that is from the deoxygenated blood to the alveoli. Now the carbon dioxide is present in the alveoli. So when you compare partial pressure of carbon dioxide of the atmospheric air is 0.3, it is way less than the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide of the alveoli. So in the alveoli, the concentration of the carbon dioxide is more when compared to the atmosphere. Obviously, the carbon dioxide will move from the alveoli to the atmosphere. That is from the high pressure region to low pressure region. So during exhalation, the carbon dioxide will move from the alveoli into the atmospheric air. That is from high pressure region to low pressure region. That happens during the exhalation. So that is how exactly gaseous exchange takes place at different exchange site based on the pressure gradient or based on the difference in the partial pressure of oxygen and the carbon dioxide. But when you observe carefully, when you compare the partial pressure of oxygen and the carbon dioxide, the partial pressure difference of the oxygen at different site is way higher than the partial pressure difference of the carbon dioxide. So here the partial pressure difference of the oxygen at different site is of about 55 to 65 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure difference of the carbon dioxide at different site is only 5 mmHg. Can you tell me why oxygen require such a high partial pressure gradient when compared to carbon dioxide, or why carbon dioxide can diffuse only with a very less partial pressure gradient? Yes, that is because of solubility. Carbon dioxide has high solubility. Solubility means it can easily diffuse through the membrane or it can easily dissolve in the blood when compared to oxygen. So solubility of the carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times more than the oxygen. That's why carbon dioxide can easily pass through the membrane or it can easily dissolve in the blood even with the very less partial pressure gradient, that is of about 5 mmHg, whereas oxygen has solubility very less. So because of that, it requires high partial pressure gradient, that is of about 55 to 65 mmHg for the diffusion to occur. So solubility of the gases is one of the main factor that determines the rate of the diffusion. Apart from that, there are many other factors which determines the rate of the diffusion, which includes pressure gradient or concentration gradient, that is difference in the pressure or the concentration. Next is solubility of the gas, that is carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times more soluble when compared to oxygen. Next is thickness of the membrane. Yes, diffusion in the respiratory system involves a membrane. Membrane of what? Membrane of alveoli and membrane of the blood capillary. So oxygen and carbon dioxide should pass through this membrane, and this membrane is known as diffusion membrane. So diffusion membrane includes the alveolar wall of the alveoli, which is made up of thin squamous epithelium. Next, the wall of the blood capillary, which is made up of endothelium. And in between this squamous epithelium and endothelium of the blood capillary, there is a substance known as basement substance. So, oxygen from the alveoli, it should pass through the squamous epithelium of the alveolar wall, then it should pass through the basement substance, then through the endothelium of the blood capillary, and it should dissolve in the blood. Similarly, the carbon dioxide from the blood, it should pass through the endothelium of the blood capillary, then through the basement substance, and then it passes through the squamous epithelium. Then only it can enter the alveoli. So, carbon dioxide and oxygen should pass through this diffusion membrane. Anyhow, the thickness of this diffusion membrane is very small. It is less than 1 millimeter. That's why easily oxygen and carbon dioxide can diffuse through this membrane. Anyhow, thickness of the membrane also one of the factor which determines the diffusion of the gases or rate of diffusion. Next is area of the pulmonary surface. Area of the pulmonary surface means number of the alveoli and the area of the alveoli which are available for the diffusion to occur. So these are the factors which determines the rate of diffusion in the respiratory system. So that is all about the exchange of gases. I hope this video is useful. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.